Welcome to the fastest stuff in town. Today, Masechtas Ketubot Daf Yud Zayin. We are going to begin on the very bottom of Tes Zayin Amud Beis, 2 lines from the bottom. We were learning different minhagim and customs that took place at a wedding, and now we find the famous song and custom in machlokas between Beisham and Yisrael. Tanurban, Ketzad Merakdim Lifnei Hakala. Now, what does it mean? How do we dance in front of a kala? So Rashi says, what do you say to her? So Beis Shammai Oimrim, as we continue Yud Zayin with Aleph, very fascinating machlokas and a lot to discuss. So he says, Kal Kamo Shehi. You're supposed to say exactly what she is. If she's she's beautiful, so you can mention that. If she comes from a chashuv family, you can praise her in that way. But you should be honest. Beis Hillel Oimrim Kalna v'chasuda, which of course you know that's the song. But it's only she's Beis Hillel that you're supposed to say, oh, she's a beautiful woman, she's chasuda, chut shel chesed, moshel choleh, she's so kind. So amuhen Beis Shammai Beis Hillel, so suma. Let's say you have a woman who's incapable to walk or blind. Armim lo kalna v'chasuda, v'atar armim b'dvar sheker tirchak. Now, it doesn't literally mean a person has a physical flaw. That means they're not beautiful or they're not kind. But it means that if there's something wrong with them, how could you pretend that there's nothing wrong with them? The reality is the reality. So let's say a person purchased something from the marketplace. It wasn't such a great deal. So yishabchenu be'enav or yiganenu be'enav. It's already a done deal. You're going to make a big, say, oh, nice job. You got a nice purchase. Or you're going to make the person feel bad. So, you should praise it. That your dash should be mixed with others. So what's the pshat? So I understand this as Beis Shammai is saying that there's a reality here. And everyone looks at her and she's not beautiful. She's, if you do a poll of a million men, they're not going to think she's beautiful, and she's not kind. She's not a kind person. So that's the reality of life. But Beis Hillel says something very fascinating, because it doesn't matter what the whole world thinks. Beauty is in the eye of the beholder. So therefore, just as long as that one man finds her beautiful, that one man finds something positive about her, then that's what you should focus on. There's no need to have to focus on your reality. You focus on the chassan's reality. And that's why it says that your dash should be morevus im habrios. Should be mixed with them. It's not how you think and how you feel. It's how the other person thinks and feels. Which is a tremendous word. Kiyosu Rabdimi Omer Hachi Misharakimi Kalasa. But remember, this is how they used to sing in Eretz Yisrael. Loy Choyov, Loy Shrak, Loy Pirchus, that she doesn't need makeup, not red dyes, and not braided hair. V'yalos she's like a beautiful gazelle. Ki samcho Rabbanu Rav Zera shari hachi loy kachoyev loy srak lo pirchus v'yalos chen. So it's interesting that is the song that they would sing for the ordination of a rabbi. Certainly that in itself needs tremendous work. Ki samcho Rabbanu Rav Amu Rav Asi Sharli Hachi Koil Min Dain V'chol Min Dain Samuch Lana. These types of people are going to ordain. However, Loy Tismachu Lana Loy Min Sar Misin. We're not going to make rabbis. Those who are Rashi's Masarsin Halachais the Hevach Tameh and the invert the halachos, Lomin Sarmitin, not some Rashi says Loshin Smartutin, like a language of rags. Lomin Chamisin, Rashi says that's Oimrim Chamisha Satam. They only say a fifth of the truth. Or it says on the side, Sheshainin Chumsha Shel Masachas. They only learn a fifth of the Masechta. V'loimin Turmisin. Rashi is a little sparish. It's not really explained what that is, but then he says in the parentheses, Anoshim Rikonim. Rabavoi ki haviyasim mimasifta lebe kesar nafkan ahamosa lebe kesar la'apei. So the maidservant of the Beit Kesar came in front to Misharin Lahach, and they sang in that way to him. And this is how she sang. Rav Almi, leader of the nation, Dabrana de Umase, and the leader of our nation, Boitzina de Nahira, you lit a candle, Brich Masyach Lishloim, that your coming should be with peace. Amar Lav al Rabbi Huda Bar Eloi, Shahayinaitel Bad Shal Hadas, he used to take a myrtle, a miracle of Neakal, the Ermer Kal Navachasuda. So he held like Beis Hill. Rabbi Shmuel, obviously there's some connection of the Shaykhus of a Hadas. Rabbi Shmuel Bar Rav Yitzchak Miracle Atlas. He actually had three. Rashi says, why three? Sholish Bedin Zarik Achas Mekabil Achas. He juggled them. Rav Zera Ka Machsef Lon Saba. It seems like he's embarrassing. Ki nach navshin, when he died, Isik Amudid in Nahura Ben Didelu Kol Yalma. So there was a fire that separated him and the whole world. This was such a chashivos that this only happens once or twice in a generation. So obviously, even though it seems to be degrading that he's dancing and juggling and he's such a chashuv of a man, obviously that's a misunderstanding of how we interpret. Being Sameach L'Chasan and Kala is a chashuv zach, and therefore it doesn't matter, even though it doesn't look, how could you do such a thing? It's almost very similar to the story of Michal and with David. Rav Zera, so he says like this: Ahanyele Shaitise Lasaba. This branch of Hadassah has helped your grandfather. The Armula Shetuse Lasaba. It was actually the fact he acted like a shaita, which means that he acted a little foolishly, but it was done Lishma. The Armula Shitase Lasaba, the Shita of your grandfather. Rav Acha Markabla Kasve. He would actually have the kala right on his shoulders, a marakid, and dance with her. Amu Rabbanan Nan Mahal Mevet Hachi. Can we do the same thing? If you consider her like a beam, like just a piece of wood, then no problem. But if you have hihurim, or you view her in a different manner, then you can't do this. It has to be totally lishma. Rav Shmuel bar Nachman Rav Yonasan motul stakel b'fnei kala kol shiva kidei l'chaba ba'il v'yisel chazakavase. You have to stare. You're not supposed to stare at a woman, certainly someone else's wife. But if you're almost gawking at her, it makes the chassan feel like, wow, so many men find her beautiful and attractive. But the halach is not like that. We don't want to condone such behavior. But it does again show you're not doing it because you really are attracted to this woman for improper thoughts. You're doing it because you want him to feel more connected to his wife. A very interesting concept. Tanaban, mavirin es a mace lifnei kala, that we're going to be pass over a mace instead of a kala. Zev v'zel lifnei melech Yisrael, and both of them if a king comes. Amro love al agrifas hamelech she'avrim lifnei kala v'shivchu hachamim. So he actually, even though he was a powerful king, nonetheless, he yielded for a kala. That sounds like he did a good thing. This is a little bit of a difficult question. Question 9. So a nasi, it's a machlokas, but a melech is not allowed to. Why? You have to show fear. You have to have an element of yira. So the fact that he allowed a kala to go in front of him doesn't seem to be praiseworthy. It seems like he did the wrong thing. So the Gemara says, Parshas Derachim Havoi. Very interesting. It was a crossroads. Says Rashi, it wasn't so clear that he was just letting her go by. Looked like he had to go a different way. It wasn't so clear that he let her do it. If it was 100% clear, then that would have been wrong. But because there was another pathway, so therefore that wasn't something which was considered to be a problem. Fine. Tanurban. So we stop learning Torah when it comes to a mace or a kala that comes by. Okay. So this is going to be question TB1. 600,000. So we're going to get to that soon. So he says like this: But when do you stop? That there's no one else to take care of the mace. Then you have to stop. What's the needs of a mace? Some Rav Shmuel bar Ini Mishmei Derav, Triaser Alfi Gavri, 12,000 people, Vashisa Alpi Shipurin, 6,000 trumpet blowers. The Ermula Tleaser Alpi or Treaser Alpi Alfi Gavri, Uminayu Shis Alfi Shipuri. The question is, are the 6,000 included in the 12,000 or is it additional 6,000? Ul Omer Kagain Dechaitzi Gavri, like a wall of men that can go mi'avula vi'ad sichor, from those two places. Rav Sheshes v'itim Rav Yochanan Amar netilasa kenesi nasa, that just as a person is taken out, referring to actually the Torah, Rashi says, kechnisasa b'sinai netilasa hainu kishimes the Talmud batal. So ma nesi nasa, just like when the Torah was given as Meshishim Rebuah, 600,000 people. So Av Netilasa Meshishim Rebuah. Also here it's 600,000. So this is going to end up being TB1. Let's develop this. This is specifically someone who is a Kari. Rashi says he learns Chumash, Mikra, Tani, he learns Mishnah, but he doesn't learn with students, or he doesn't learn Gemara. There's different interpretations what this is going to mean as we continue to Yud Zayin Mevez. So those people, that's the limitation of 600,000. However, a person who is on a totally different level that also teaches and knows Gemara, it's Rashi says Lamasi Lacherim Leislu Shiura. Umemelu Shamin and Laman Doloi Kari Volitani. Someone who doesn't read, doesn't know anything, Ein Mavatlin, we don't stop learning. Im Yeshloi Misaskin. So there's really three levels. Let's see how he answers this. So that's 600,000. Obviously, if it's a mace mitzvah, it's a mace mitzvah, but you don't stop for someone who's Nebuchadnezzar Aretz. Okay. Weiter. Now, so going back to our Mishnah, so if there's a question, was this woman a basula or she an almana? Obviously, she wants the Mosayim, the 200 zuz, so she says she's basula. So if there's witnesses that she came out behinuma, which we'll see what that is now, then that's going to be proof that she was a basula and she gets 200. So my hinuma, so sorcha bar papa mishmei deziri amar tanur asa. Literally, it's an oven shaped of myrtles. Rav Yochanan Oimer Karisa de Dimnamo Bakalata. It's some type of a veil that causes her to sleep or to doze. And the idea behind this is because it shields her face and it's so dark that it makes a person sleepy. Rav Yochanan ben Broika Oimer V'chu Tanabi Yehuda Raya Bebavel Mai. So he said that Afchil Kloya Israya. That's what Rabbi Yochanan ben Broika said. So how about in Bavel? So Amr Rav Darduge de Mishcha, that they would rub the oil a ration Rabbana. Armali Rapapa Abaya Mishcha de Chafifua Fusa Kamarmar. You're talking about oil for rubbing. Sa'amalei yasma. Yasma refers to yosem. Lo avdalach imach. Did your mother not do this? Dardugi mishcha reish rabbanan b'shas ma'isa. So look at Rashi. Dardugi mishcha nashim noisin shemen b'rosh talmidim. That she would put this oil on the top of the heads. The Yasma, says Rashi, Yosem Mimina Ganayig. You must be like an orphan from this custom. Ki hadahu merabanan the asasically bray. When he was engaged in taking care of his son who was getting married to a woman. Lisa Lebre be Rabba Bar Ula. Yermulo Rabba Bar Ula Sasik Lebre. He was preparing for his son. Ki ahum Rabbanan, when the Rabbanan came, Dardig Mishcha Reish Rabban Mishas Maisa, and they put this oil on their heads. Armalta Mai. What would they do? What simon was it that she was an almana? So Tani Rav Yosef Armalta Leisla Kisane. She does not have kisane. Rashi says Ein la Kaloyos. Simana. They didn't have these toasted grains. Look in Taisvus. The Yehuda boy. This was in Yehuda. Shalohaya el achila klayos. They only had roasted grains. Lakak boy el mana mai v'haloi pamim afil b'loi chuppah hayiragim lach. Like they used to split this up. Yesh locha shema chiluka b'chuppah salmana. Mishani leisla kisane perish hayinis harin harbe shlo yichalka klayos b'chuppah salmana. They would be careful not to do this. Okay, weiter. So, even though he doesn't normally hold him a migu, she could have said mukaseitz, but in the case where a person says, your father was in this field, and he owned it, but he sold it to me. So he says a peshas of peshahiter. I have listening, Maidu Rabbi Yeshua ba'ema chaver sadazu shalcha haisa l'kachticha mimcha. Why doesn't he say the cases where he said to his friend that the field was yours? Why does that have to be your father? What's the difference? Why does he have to make it into that situation? What's the difference between him saying, I bought it from you or I bought it from your father? If there's witnesses that it was his, the father's, and I said that I bought it from him, what is that situation? If, let's say, that I was already there for 3 years and there was no oyrim, there was no one that complained, no one made a macha, so a ma'avlo mehimin. Even with Adam, since you were there for the shnei chazaka, so it's still yours. And if you weren't there for the 3 years, then obviously you're not going to be believed. So you could say the same thing. You can still say that same thing, but manushach, it doesn't fit. So how is it any better in the case where there's a father involved? So the Gemara says as follows: and maybe you could say that it was split, that 2 of the years your father owned it, and then 1 year afterwards, the 3rd year of my chazaka, it was no longer your father's, it was the son's. It was during the 3rd year. It says Rashi, the itzrach lemisnui going to achash nechazaka, it's possible even after 3 years you're still not going to be believed. Umes, the man died after 2 years. And then the 3rd year was the 1st year of the son, where the father was in the picture, and that was my 3rd year of being muksuk in the karka. V'hu haya katan, v'hu arer, and he didn't complain, he was a kid. V'yisach hashmina, the kimat katan haya, ein hashana hazais oil min minyan. That 3rd year will not count. Rav Huna, ein machzikim nechse katan afil higdil. That even though he's already grown up, the fact that the 3rd year was while he was a katan, that doesn't help, says Rashi. Hamachzek min nechse katan. If you grabbed onto the possessions of a katan, shol shonim, eno chazaka, it's nothing. The loy micha. The reason why the child didn't protest, misham the katan, who is a kid. If you higdil achamikan, even if he grew up afterwards, The hechsik zeh b'fanav kama shanim, and you were there for many years. Eino chazaka hoyel utchilasu k'shukatan. Since the 3 years was not during the time which you were able to make a chazaka. So where it says Rav Huna Masnis Nasashmina, understand? Is he just coming to tell us something we already learned? That if this is what the Mishnah is talking about, so then he's not adding anything. So Iboy Seima Rav Huna Diyuka Masnis in Kaimer. He's actually just like elaborating on our Mishnah. Iboy Seima Afilu Higdil Kamashmon. The Chinish is that even though you were there many years later, after the child is already grown up, it doesn't make any difference. I've listed b'didei. So why don't you just mention it's the case of him, right? He's the owner of it, right? Actually, before we go weiter, let's look at question 10. So this is how he says it. So that's the chiddush. So again, let's talk about that you're talking about the person himself, not the father. 2 years was in front of him. Maybe he ran away, says Rashi. The 3rd year won't count because he wasn't able to make a macha because he ran away. So in this Gemara asks, Baruch Machmas Mai, why did he run away? What was the reason why this person ran away? Either Baruch Machmas Nefashis, if he ran away because he was going to be killed otherwise, Pshita Delo Mehimin, Delo Matzi Mache, because obviously you can't make a macha, right? So therefore, those 3 years don't mean anything because he was running for his life. He was able to run properly. So it's actually going to be TA1, which we're going to see in a second. Question is, so clearly, when it comes to a situation where you're running away and it's machmas nefashis, so then certainly he's not going to be believed because he cannot make a macha. The baruch machmas mammon is just because you didn't want to get paid. So still, then that he should have made a macha. So which one is it? The kaimon machashul b'fanav havi macha, because we learned a macha could be done even not in front of the person. Ditnan shol sharatzos achazaka. There's 3 lands. Yehuda ve'evar yard ve'golil. Hoy Behuda v'hechsek begolil begol v'hechsek behuda eno chazaka ad shehi imo b'medina. You have to be in the same place because there weren't caravans going from one place to the other. So you may not even have known that there was someone on your property. If you hold a macha not in front is a macha, so if you'll be huda v'gol nami, you should be able to make a macha even from one country to the next. Even if you're in the same province, but if you're not in front of the other person, maybe that's not a good macha. Really, if you make a protest not in front of the person, it'll still get to that person because news will spread. It's talking about a time where there was fighting between the 2 places. It says Rashi, "Yachal loimer lo nigleisili machasai sheshmer shtari." I couldn't guard my star because I didn't know what was going on. Masnisim b'shas chayrim shonim. So Ma'ishna Yehuda v'Gol did nakat. So why do we mention those 2 cities? As we continue, the Chesed Aleph, the Stam Yehuda v'Gol k'shas chayrim dami. Adkan.